Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Today I wanted to talk about a number of different cases that I've looked at here on the channel and look at some of the comments and ask for a little feedback from folks. So watch till the end if you can and offer, or if something just strikes you as important, you can not wait to the end. Just make sure that you let me know what you think. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Hannah Payne case. And I made a video where I essentially said, this is really the argument for firearms training if people are going to conceal and carry. But I have received a number of interesting comments about the case. And this first one I want to show you because it brings to mind a question. Bjorn says, thanks for this video. He's personally against firearms and in the hands of people. He thinks there are less lethal but efficient methods to avoid problems like pepper spray and tasers. Pepper spray can sometimes just make somebody that much more angry. I saw that in the emergency room as a respiratory therapist when people would come in handcuffed and chained to the gurney and they'd been pepper sprayed. We pretty much had to medicate them to get them to calm down. And so in some respects, it does work for people who can't deal with pain. It'll put them right on the floor. But for people who don't mind a little pain or can control the pain, it just makes them madder than a wet hornet. So pepper spray is a problem. Tasers also don't work. Somebody could make a lot of money putting together a taser fail video of all the different times people have tried, particularly police officers have tried tasers and they just didn't work. And as a result of that, they had to go to something far more lethal. But Sigint here says, don't bring pepper spray to a knife or a gunfight. And he's right about that. But Bjorn then comes back and says part of the problem is that conclusion leads that everybody should bring a gun. And I also think that there's some merit to that. And also, Sigint then comes back. You can't really see it on here at the moment, but he says, not everything can be de-escalated. And that is absolutely true. There is a lot of neuroscience behind the issue of de-escalation. And I've actually done a fair amount of research. I've been working on an article for one of the magazines that I write for. And the article that I'm working on talks about the neuroscience of de-escalation and how people react, the things that people spot. There are certain things called pre-assault indicators that are very important in de-escalation. And if anybody would find that kind of presentation useful, I know that Bjorn has asked me to do that particular video. If anybody else is interested in seeing that video, please let me know in the comments. I think it's an interesting topic. It's not precisely legal, but again, we don't have to stay precisely legal on everything. If it's something that you're interested in, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Having a background in healthcare and law both provides me some opportunities to do things on the science side that I might not be able to do on the legal side. So the next thing I want to talk about here is the Kurczewski issue with this ridiculous letter that she wanted her friend to send to the judge. And then, of course, later on, she sent a letter of her own to the judge. And frankly, I'm tired of her, jerking people around, so I'm not really covering that anymore. But as I've often said on here, I have some of the smartest subscribers on YouTube, and it has amazed me how frequently you guys come up with things that I didn't come up with. And when people do, I feel an obligation sometimes to share those with the community at large. And here's one of those. Kim Hutchins, 70, says, I think she gave it to attorney to give to her mom. Her mom delivered it. Hopefully cameras caught that on someone's ring cam. Now, that's pretty interesting when you get right down to it, that somebody would consider the issue of getting that to this person, this friend of hers, to having it go through her mom. But that makes some sense. I can see an attorney saying, yeah, I'll give this confidential letter to your mom, thinking that her mom wouldn't do anything to, work in terms of a conspiracy to affect justice. But I think that was a bad decision on whoever's part. Convicts and people who are in jail for a reason. And many times they are in jail and they develop these skills. I don't know, maybe it comes naturally when you're in jail, but they find ways to manipulate people. They manipulate guards. There are several cases of female guards particularly falling in love with a prisoner. In one case in western Missouri, a female guard fell in love with her prisoner. She got him a uniform, a guard's uniform. She got him changed into the guard's uniform, walked him out of the prison. They went on the run. They were finally arrested down in Texas, living in a small camper trailer kind of thing. And he went back to prison, and eventually she went to prison for aiding and abetting an escape. So these are the kind of things that happen, and convicts are very good at manipulating people. And I think Kurczewski is probably a master manipulator, and that unfortunately is going to be a problem for both the prosecution and anybody who is assigned to defend her in the future, because she thinks she's a lot smarter than she is. So I wanted to bring that comment up because I thought it was important. Now let's move on to the Vander Ark case, which, as you all know, is the mom who essentially starved her child to death. And she did it in a horrible, torturing way, a way that I would hope that no one would ever even think of doing. But unfortunately, somebody did, so we know that it happened. Some of the comments here have been, in some cases, a mild rebuke to me, and I have to accept that. I need to be better about putting a trigger warning at the front of some of these videos, because some of the stuff that gets revealed in some of these cases can really be pretty upsetting. This is a reply from Cora Jean. She said, I saw about 15 seconds of the trial and had to change it. Way too disturbing for me. And I apologize for that. This really was an awful case. And yes, thank God for prisons. I would agree completely with that. But ND Grandma 2124, which I assume is North Dakota Grandma, this one really hits the nail on the head. The props criminals use are maddening. Librarian hairstyle and glasses, necklace with cross exposed, reading the Bible during trial, braided pigtails. I put that Dorothy image up on one side and Vander Ark on the other, and said which one wore it better. I clearly think that Judy Garland did, but that was 50, 60 years ago. Anyway, braided pigtails. I was surprised Monster Van Ark didn't come bouncing into court with a flouncy little dress, a lollipop in one hand and a balloon in the other. Props and theatrics and the fake puking and the fake crying don't fool a jury. She's right. They don't fool a jury. Juries tend to get it right 98% of the time. One thing that I find ridiculous is they didn't allow the jury to see the video that a surveillance camera recorded of the death itself because it was too prejudicial. This is one of those prejudicial versus probative. The only thing that would have shown would have been the actual moment that the child expired. And it probably would have been very, very prejudicial because it sought a decision based on emotion as opposed to logic. And so one of the things that good judges do is on close calls, particularly where it looks pretty strong that the court is going to have to convict the criminal, they let evidentiary calls like that one go to the defendant. And the reason they do that is to ensure that some appellate judge sitting in an ivory tower somewhere looking at this case later on doesn't look at it and go, oh gosh, that was so unfair to this poor sweet little girl here. We need to rectify that situation. She could have had the Pope testify for her, and I don't think it would have made any difference. So they did exclude it. It probably was the best evidence of the death, but you can prove up the death through the death certificate. You can prove up the death through the co-conspirator in this case, the son. And generally speaking, there are tons of photographs. They probably had the medical examiner testify as to what caused this death. I'm sure there were photos and stuff there. All of that stuff would have been pretty hard to look at anyway, and so in that situation, what you have is a judge trying to protect the record on appeal, and he did the right thing there. Sometimes it's hard to understand why judges do that, but they do it essentially to protect the record. Now I want to move to some of the earlier comments in the Adelson case. And this is one from Charlie Adelson's trial. And I think it's important for a number of reasons. We have someone saying, I think she will likely be convicted based on coincidences, but after hearing all the recent jail calls as well as that long police interrogation, I now actually believe Wendy is innocent of knowing anything about the conspiracy ahead of time. And then we look at Pam Cake's response a month previously. She says she apparently told the police she didn't know about the failed attempt and then later agreed with the defense that she did know about it. I don't have any recollection of that from watching her testimony, but here's what I would say. I do think the jail calls tend to be exculpatory with respect to Wendy. And I do believe that she's probably not guilty of conspiring. She probably did know after it happened exactly who did it because she knew how upset her mom was. But, you know, blood is thicker than water, and she probably did try to protect her family as much as she could. I think any of us would probably do that, particularly when someone's looking at, you know, a lifetime in jail. But I do want to make one very important statement here that I think is useful and worthwhile to make because I've made it several times in the comments, and I want to make sure that everybody understands where I'm going with this. And that is, Wendy Adelson testified very effectively. There are a lot of people who, when they are asked a question by a prosecutor and it suggests the answer, because on direct you're not supposed to be able to do that, but a little bit of that happened, they will simply say, oh yeah, I probably did say that. Wendy asked for the transcript and then corrected the inference that came out of that. She did that because she's a trained attorney. She knows how this system works. And she knows that when the prosecutor is speaking, particularly in a situation like hers, the prosecutor is essentially attempting to testify through her, and she did not want to let that happen. Again, blood being thicker than water, she probably didn't want to see her brother go to jail for the rest of his life, even though clearly her brother needed to go to jail for the rest of his life. I don't know which one of these geniuses came up with the idea to unalive Dan Markel. Whether it was Donna Adelson or Charlie Adelson, I'm not sure who did it. I'm not sure who came up with the genius idea to reach out to the girlfriend to get her ex-boyfriend involved. It's a little bit like, you know, you want to build a fast breeder nuclear reactor, and so you call up Larry, Curly, and Moe and say, what do you know about math? And Moe says, yeah, pick two. You know, it is ridiculous to think that anybody could get away with that. And experience, you know, all they had to do was watch court TV for a couple of months, or the forensic files, or the FBI files on cable. All they had to do was watch that stuff. In fact, you can see some of that stuff here on YouTube. That's basic research they could have done and realized, well, this just isn't going to work out for us. But instead, they went on ahead and do that. So I want to make sure you understand that when I talk about Wendy Adelson being a good witness, there is a difference between being a good witness and being a good person. Now, if she was part of the conspiracy, which I don't think has been proved to this point, but if she was part of the conspiracy, she should be arrested, tried, and she should go to jail if she's convicted. In killing Dan Markel, the killers deprived the Markel boys of their father, of guidance, of training, of supervision, of being there to give fatherly advice at some point in time in the future. That was an awful thing to do. The idea that it was done, at least in part, by their uncle and maybe their grandmother. The only way Donna is ever going to see those children is if Wendy brings them to the prison to visit her, and my guess is that's not going to happen. I don't know if any of you have listened to the jail calls or not, but there are a number of comments that Donna makes where Wendy is saying, look, I'm not talking about this case with you or anybody else because I didn't do anything wrong. And I think without saying it, she sort of said, look, you idiots talk all the time and you just keep digging the hole deeper. You know, the idea of, the best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. You can't dig all the way to the other side of the earth. Unfortunately, I don't think the Adelsons understand that, but certainly Wendy Adelson does. She's smart. She is a good lawyer, and as a result of that, she's not going to get caught up in this ridiculous nonsense of talking on a telephone and revealing things that you clearly should not reveal. But that doesn't make her a good person. Being smart doesn't make you a good person any more than being well-dressed makes you a good person. It's just a character trait that you have that is useful in many other respects. So I don't want to be seen as an advocate or someone who is a champion for Wendy Adelson, but by the same token, I don't want to rush to judgment. I think it's proper to let the process play out and see what the courts decide and see what the prosecutors decide going forward. And I would point out one other thing, and that is that Dan Markel's parents are older, and raising boys is not for the weak. I raised two of them. I know it's not for the weak. My son frequently comments on here, and I'm sure he's raising two boys. He will probably tell you it's not for the weak. I wonder if they have some doubts about Wendy's involvement, if maybe they think it isn't better that at least the children have one parent. Maybe it's better that they have one parent than that they have no parents and that these children get saddled or put into the foster system or go to the grandparents who may not be able to provide them with the kind of instruction and advice and counsel that their natural parents would. And so that's just another thought with regard to the Adelson thing. Well, that's sort of what I had. I had a lot of other things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Hannah Payne, but this video is already too long, and I apologize for that. Thank you very much for being a part of the channel. If you have any comments, let me know. If you're interested in me making that neuroscience video on de-escalation techniques, I would be delighted to do it. You just need to let me know in the comments. And as always, if you have the opportunity, do something kind for someone. Yesterday, I baked fruitcakes. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, nobody likes a fruitcake. Oh, yes, they do. I use a sour cream pound cake as the base for my fruitcake, and it's so good even Tony Two Toes likes it. So, at any rate, if you have the opportunity, and part of what I did, I baked some for my daughter who lives here in town. I baked some for her and her family, and it's always nice to share. My mother used to say that everything tastes better when you share, and there's some truth to that. My wife says that's not true with regard to certain varieties of ice cream, but everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? So thank you very much for being here. thanks for being a part of the channel. Thanks for your gracious comments and for pointing out when I say stupid things, because unfortunately, I do say stupid things, and you guys have been very gracious in the way that you have rebuked me. You know, a gentle rebuke turneth away anger, and you guys seem to have mastered that. Have a great day. Catch me down here at the beach next time.
If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.